live in a small town called Julian in California. I had started renting an apartment in some guy's 2-family house. I was browsing Craigslist daily for some cheap furniture to fill the apartment with, or maybe even free furniture if I was lucky. After a week of looking for specific items like a living room couch and TV stand, I stumbled across an ad titled in all capitals, "Giving away Maplewood TV stand, mint condition." The ad obviously caught my eye, so I clicked it in a heartbeat, with the first thing I checked being the date of posting. It said it was posted a couple hours ago. This was a very good sign. The ad had a picture of the stand too. It looked pristine. The description gave an explanation as to why the owner was giving it away. Apparently her boyfriend was going away to the military and didn't have room to store a lot of his furniture, nor did he have time to sell it, and she would be moving back with her parents. There was a number attached to the ad which said call or text. I shot the man a text expressing serious interest in the stand. First thing I noticed was the green text, meaning he didn't also have an iPhone. That was always annoying to see because usually that meant the person would take longer to respond and I couldn't see when they were typing. However, the person got back to me surprisingly fast. She introduced herself as Anna and said I could come take a look at that stand the same night at 9 when she would get home from work, if I'd like to. I got back to her within 10 seconds saying, yeah, absolutely. She sent me her address, I thanked her, and she didn't respond after that. Come 8 o'clock, I sent her another text just to confirm that I could still come. She didn't answer. By 8:30, I was getting a little concerned and antsy, so I decided to call her. It rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. I didn't leave a voicemail, but she finally texted me back a few seconds after I called her. She said you can come now. So I put the address into the GPS, hopped in my car, and off I was to the destination. I pulled up to the house and knocked on the door since she said don't ring the doorbell. I gave the door 3 sets of knocks to no avail. I tried calling her, again she didn't pick up, but after the call didn't go through, she sent another text, telling me to just let myself in. I stood there for a second and read her text over and over at least 3 different times, before responding back, is there a problem? I thought it was weird that she was telling me to let myself in. She didn't respond to that text though, so after a few seconds of thinking it over, I grabbed the doorknob and pushed open the door. It made a very distinct and alerting sound, so I was positive Anna could hear it from wherever she was. I shut the door. It was on the darker side in the house, mainly because it seemed like a lot of the curtains were shut. It also had a very distinct, mildewy, cottony smell. I heard a voice call out from upstairs telling me to come up. I said, alright, be right there. But her voice sounded weird. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Halfway up the stairs, I called up, Anna, right? She replied back, yup. Again, her voice sounded odd. I got to the top of the stairs, and there were 2 sides of the hallway I could go down. I playfully called out, which side? With a slight laugh in my voice, even though deep down I was finding the situation incredibly sketchy. Anna's voice came from the left side, from beyond an open bedroom door. I walked to the doorway and stopped. I didn't enter the room though it was a massive room mostly void of furniture. I poked my head into the room and didn't see anyone. Anna? I said. No answer. I was already inching back away from the doorway. Anna, I said one more time. This time she replied, over here, just come inside. But it sounded like she was right behind the open door, and now I was realizing what was off about her voice. It wasn't a she at all. I was 100% sure it was a man pretending to be a woman. I said I forgot something in my car, I'll be right back. I turned for the stairs. That's when the door pulled open completely with force. But I was already on my way down the stairs before I could see who opened the door. I got to the bottom of the stairs, and I heard in a suddenly deep, haunting yell, come back. I opened and slammed the front door shut behind me, and when I got to my car, I never felt more relieved in my life. I drove down the street not looking back at that house. I blocked that number I was given as soon as I got home, and when I went online to report the Craigslist ad, it was already taken down. I figured I'd leave well enough alone. It was not my problem anymore, and I would never go back to that house again, nor concern myself with it. It's still definitely a haunting memory to look back and hear that voice as I was walking up those steps, and behind that door. What would have happened if I wasn't wise enough to run away? I'm sharing this life experience of mine with the internet as a public service announcement to be careful on Craigslist or any similar websites. I happen to be browsing the for sale section of Craigslist trying to find a used laptop. One listing really got my attention, some Dell touchscreen laptop for $250. It looked like it was in good shape with very few minor cosmetic imperfections. I texted the owner, who introduced himself as Dave, and told me I could come pick it up that same night. He offered to meet halfway somewhere so that I wouldn't have to drive all the way out to his place. I live in the countryside, so he lived a solid 10 miles away, which would equate to a 20 to 25 minute drive. Since there aren't many notable places near either of us, we agreed to meet at a 7-Eleven parking lot. I got there at the agreed upon time, which was 10 p.m. sharp. I waited around for a few minutes, then I decided I was going to give him a call. But just as I took my phone out of my pocket to call him, his name came up on my phone. He was calling me. I picked up, skipping the hello, and just said, "Dave, what's going on?" There was a loud background noise on his end, maybe from his driving. There was an initial moment of silence before he started talking. He said he wouldn't be able to make it all the way to 7-Eleven because his car was making weird noises and he didn't want to go too far from home. So he pulled over to the side of the road off some side street. But when we say side streets out here, we don't mean side streets surrounded by buildings or houses. Side streets out here usually mean roads with no streetlights and surrounded by forest or farms. He gave some bizarre description of where he was. There was no way I'd be able to find it ordinarily, so I had him send me his location through his phone. He really was just parked on the side of some side road somewhere. I really didn't know if I was comfortable going at this point. It seemed way too suspicious. I'd heard all about those Craigslist horror stories before, and this seemed like the cliche build-up to one. Against my better judgment, I started driving over to Dave's location anyway. About 5 minutes of driving later on some completely pitch-black road, I eventually saw the reflection of someone's taillights parked on the side of the road. So it had to be him. I pulled up behind the car in the grass next to a large cornfield but kept the car running. I turned my headlights off for a second, and it literally became blackness in every possible direction, so I turned the headlights back on. Weird though, I didn't see any light from his car, not even the light from a phone. I called him again. He picked up on the first ring and said he had to run into the crops to take a quick piss, and to just get into his car so that when he gets back he could quickly show me his laptop. He hung up before I could even get my response in. This was too weird for me. I really didn't know what to do. I guess I figured I'd step out of the car and just wait behind the door for this Dave person to come out. He said he went into the crops, so I kept my eyes on the right side of the road by the crops. What a strange place to have any kind of exchange other than a drug deal. It didn't seem right at all. I stood right by my car door for the longest time, easily 2 or 3 minutes. There was no way he was peeing for that long. It was starting to seem like it was time to go. I'd give him another 30 seconds, I figured. In the final moments of my waning patience standing there, I thought I heard brushing around coming from the crops. I kept doing double takes from one side of the crops to the other. "Dave?" I yelled. The brushing sounds in the crops faded away, but a crackling leaf or two from behind my car made me turn to see someone sneaking up on me from behind my car. Exactly what I feared would happen, but that didn't make it any less horrific as I jumped into my car and floored it before the door was even fully shut. I literally loved myself for thinking to leave the car running. If I had turned it off, I may not have escaped in time. Deep down, I kinda knew the situation was far too suspicious to be real. But really, do any of us ever expect things like this to happen? These things are only supposed to happen in horror movies. You're not actually supposed to experience them for yourself. I guess it just remains a story to tell friends and family for years to come. It was 2011. I had to sell my old bicycle since I had recently got a new one. It wasn't a piece of junk, so I figured I could get a couple $100 for it. I had never used Craigslist before, so I had to have my son show me how to use it. He basically put the whole ad together for me and showed me how to actually post it. He listed my phone number so that anyone who was interested could text or call me. The ad was up for a few days with no bites, and I was becoming impatient. I think after 3 days, I finally got a text from someone late in the day showing interest in coming to buy the bike. He got right down to it actually in his first text, saying he wanted to come get the bike as soon as possible. I told him he could come right now and included my address. He said he'd be over within half an hour. I was happy to potentially be getting this bike off my mind finally. I was actually home alone. I don't fully remember what my family was doing. I think my wife and younger son had gone out shopping while my older son just went out with his friends. But you get the point, I was alone. I was sitting in my living room watching TV. It was dark out by now when I heard a car pull up in front of the house outside. I looked out the window and watched as 3 grown men got out of the car. Right off the bat, that screamed overkill. Why would anyone need to take along 2 other people to go check out a bicycle? One of them rang the bell. They had to have seen me standing by the window, so they knew I was there. So I opened the door, and the man standing in front of the other 2 reached out and shook my hand. His name was Jeffrey, or at least that's what he claimed. He was a big dude. You wouldn't have to look at him twice to know he lifted weights. He also had a really thick beard and deep voice. He didn't introduce his 2 friends though, who were just standing behind him looking at me with blank expressions. They weren't exactly tiny men either. As I was mid-sentence telling them let's go around back, Jeffrey cut past me and into my house, saying, "Which way to the bike?" His 2 friends followed. The idea of making sure they didn't enter my house was clearly out the window. So I rushed in front of them and led them down the half stairs to the back door. Jeffrey and one of his friends came out back with me, while his 3rd friend asked me where the restroom was. I paused for the longest time. How was I about to let this random guy go use my bathroom while I was out here with his 2 friends? But as I looked at his 2 friends who were staring at me, I submissively gave him directions to my bathroom. As that man disappeared into my house, I went to the shed to grab the bicycle. On my walk to and from the shed fetching the bike, all I was thinking was, what did I just get myself into? So I showed Jeffrey the bike. He started analyzing every little detail of the bike, like things no one should ever even think to analyze on a bike. For example, some of the spokes may have been slightly bent or the reflector had scuff marks on it. I was so busy answering his questions and trying to defend the condition of the bike from his remarks that I didn't even think of that man who had supposedly been in my bathroom for almost 10 minutes. I told the 2 of them to keep checking out the bike. I'd be right back to fetch something. I went inside and checked both the bathrooms, the one on the 1st floor and the one upstairs. Both of them were empty though. Just then, I heard people walking around and talking in my living room downstairs. Then, what sounded like Jeffrey calling my name. I heard them coming up the stairs. Jeffrey said something along the lines of, "We just want to talk to you. You can relax." When I say my heart was racing, that's not an understatement. I actually thought that night was going to be the night of my death. I quietly shut the bathroom door and locked it, keeping the lights off, however. I dialed 911 on my phone and whispered as quietly as I could to the operator to send police right away, or I could be dead within 10 minutes. She wanted me to remain calm and to try my best to explain the situation quietly. After explaining, she told me it was good that I was in a locked room, and to wait there until the cops showed up. Footsteps came up to the bathroom door and stopped. Then someone tried the door handle. When they realized it was locked, one of them said in a low voice, "He's in there." I told the operator they found me. She said to stay where I was. After a few seconds of silence on the other end, there was a frighteningly loud bang on the door. And then another and another. They were trying to kick the door down. I screamed the cops are almost here, and then the kicking stopped. I heard them whispering to each other, and then I heard them stomping down the stairs. I didn't leave the bathroom until the cops showed up. I was missing a lot of things, like my wallet which was on the kitchen counter, a couple watches, my iPad, and of course, the bike that was in the backyard. The cops told me to just be grateful that I wasn't killed, which I was, but how could I be happy really after this? The cops said given that they were trying to break into the bathroom, they were most likely going to kill me, which scares the hell out of me to think about. That was the one and only time I ever used Craigslist.